the difference between, being loved by God and not being, not experiencing that love is kind of like if you have something with salt, like if even just adding a tiny bit of salt makes like so much difference to a dish. Like it's the difference between having zero flavor and tasting gross, and it doesn't just make it okay or acceptable, like it makes it, it makes it worth eating.
For me, I've grown up Catholic, like I haven't known an existence without God, but it's for me like the differing openness you have to God, I guess. Like the more you open up to God, the more flavor there is. Like you open this much, you add some salt, you open this much, you add some like a lemon, you add this much, you have Cajun seasoning or something. Like the more you're open to God, the more flavor there is in your life.
When you are filled with God's love, that you're kind of like this feast, and people see that in your life, that the people around me, my friends and things like that, I go into relationships with, I'm not trying to seek so much and get out of them, but I'm just able to be me and to be able to offer who I am, my presence.
Yeah.
And even just offering my joy to people makes such a difference.
Yeah.
And people come and I guess they can smell that aroma of someone who's free to be themselves, and they want that too. There's almost like a natural yearning. We desire that.
Yeah.
The love of God. But for me, it makes the difference. Like that is the difference in my life. That I know as people we all crave love, and we want to be accepted and loved. But when you really get in touch with how much God loves us, that really blows you away.
Yeah.
And it really, I just feel filled by God and by knowing that He loves me not because I'm perfect. He loves me when I'm not perfect, and He loves me the same the whole way through. And that, I don't know, that gives me something to stand on, to base my life on.
Yeah, and so like I think for me, like we know that God loves us, and that, but like you can know that, but I think believing it is a completely different thing. For me, like I kind of, I always knew who God was and whatever, but I didn't really have a relationship with Him. But when I was like, okay, so Jesus died on the cross for me, like specifically, and you guys individually.
Yeah.
That's crazy, like that's huge. And I think knowing that, like you said before, it makes the difference. Like to know that knowing that it was for me. I think it gave me that courage to sort of stop looking, like the Archbishop said, it gave me the courage to stop looking for that joy in all the places it was never going to happen, in all the spaces that would never fill, the emptiness. The only, the relationship with Christ and the love of God can make you feel and give you the courage to step off the shore and dive into the ocean.
Just even like falling in love with a normal person, like that's exciting in itself, but like the love of God and relationship with God, that's the greatest love story, and it's an amazing thing to be able to experience that.
Like, I don't know, we can be so used to having a conversation with people who you can see and talk to, but when you're having a relationship with God, they feel like it's weird because God, He's invisible, but when you delve into Him, you start to see Him everywhere. You see Him, as we were talking about before, you see Him in nature, but you see Him in other people. And the way that, just the amount of different ways that He can speak to you is so cool and invigorating, and it's different. And the way that He encourages you, and He just astounds you with all the things that He comes up with, just being part of that is an adventure. Pope Francis mentioned allowing ourselves to be filled with the love of God. And I feel like that's jumped out of me, allowing. That we don't have to make ourselves be filled with the love of God. We allow ourselves. And it's just our openness that allows God to come in and to work.
Talking about how young people have the ability to be open, like more than any other age group, because I did some studies and whatever. And, we're more likely to take a risk. And people see that as a bad thing. But it can also be, like taking that risk with God and like letting Him come into your life. And yeah, just allowing him to love you, even if it's really hard and scary.
Dawn is breaking on us. The sun is risen now.